This is the final stop of my book tour, and it feels like a really beautiful full circle homecoming because I have my friends and my closest friends and my family here, and I'm gonna read some poems about queer Asian friendship, and I feel like this is the perfect community space to be doing that in, and things that have happened around this area. So this feels like a really powerful night, so thank you for being here. Tonight I'm gonna read some poems, and then we're gonna bring up Gabby, aka Gentle Oriental, who did the cover of the book to talk about it. And then we have Jezz in the cute little corner, who will be coming to join us for a conversation centered around pleasure and the power of feeling good. And then we will close with a meditation, perhaps Q&A if there's time, and then I'll sign books, and that'll be it. Okay, so on to the poetry reading. This book is called Gospel of a Whole Sun, and I started writing it in 2019 after a traumatic breakup, and it was my way of processing what I was experiencing and making sense of what I was going through at a time that felt really groundless and disorienting. And so I just opened up a Pages document on my laptop and wrote whatever came to my brain over the course of those few weeks. And after a while I realized, hey, I think I'm writing poems. And then I was like, hey, I think these are really good poems. And so I always say that the genre of poetry chose me. It just came flowing out of me. And then I continued writing for the next few years. So this book chronicles healing from that breakup, navigating anti-Asian violence during the pandemic, my queer coming out and falling in love to my now wife, and finding the most liberated, honest, and joyful version of myself. So we'll get to some poems. I'm gonna start with a queer one because of where we are. Jezz, will you hold the mic for me, please? Thank you. This is called For the Aunties, and it's about my queer friends and how they have changed me just by being who they are, and how powerful and liberating that can be. I love reading menus with B, anticipatory love language, like when Enriqueta, Cuban abuela, dripping in jewels and big white hair, saw us arrive at her sandwich shop, cut through the clamor with her finger pointed towards us, ordered sit, and we felt at home in Miami, being barked at by an elder with love. Café con leche evaporada, jugo de guayaba, tostada y lechon especial for breakfast, and as the plates rolled out, we began our descent into gluttony. Neither of us drink much, so instead we cheers our empanadas de espinacas, pile food onto the other's plate. No words, just noises and one more bowl of rice, and they move us to a larger table because we take space and 6 croquetas to go. I could listen to A talk about consciousness and the myth of time forever. The first time we communed, I grew bigger from their vastness. Uncontrollable laughter at rainbows in the sky, jewels and butterflies adorning their eyes, the way they are sharp and soft and young and old and uncontainable with secrets, because they know healing is meant to be communal. We have that psychic double cancer connection, cry at the same time when we're apart, text each other bok choy roses and call each other the whole sun. A and I are going to build a church one day, and in the meantime we swim in voracious ocean and dance on black sands with the whole island watching us, drumming djembes to the rhythm of our feet. D has whisked matcha for me every morning we've spent together, packs patchouli oil and oracle decks and a full gua sha set on trips and I wonder if they know they are every queer's wet dream. And I wonder how a single human contains such a colossal capacity for care. When Dee took us for a ride in the Pacific Northwest, drove through mudslide mountains like strolling through a park, I yelped at every pothole but knew we were safe. Daddy D protecting all their wives in the car, like how we speak my favorite language of none at all, and with a touch I feel their current and liquefy. B and A and D and I want to live on a commune with connecting cottages, hang out with our titties out, eat fruit and love all day. We chose each other and named ourselves Aunties, family without obligation, intimacy without ownership, home in the already ripeness of ourselves, like wine-red strawberries bursting with sweet because they have been skipped on their vine. This whole world could crumble, but together we build an ark and bring the animals with rainbow-shaded scales and unruly manes and too big of wings and sail off into the distant, untamable sunset. Thank you. Thank you, Jezz, for your beautiful arm holding. This one is a poem that I've never read out loud. It's called She Was, We Are, Christina Yuna Lee. And it's about Christina's life. And for those who don't know, Christina Yuna Lee was an Asian American woman who was killed in her home in Chinatown. I think it was about 2 years ago. And I remember reading about her life and thinking, this could be me. She was a creative producer at an agency. She was interested in art. She was politically involved. And I just remember thinking, like, this sounds like my life. It sounds like my friends' lives. It sounds like my partner, who also is an Asian woman. And so this poem brings all of those thoughts into one universe. And it talks about the sanctity of her life and how I realized that I am so interconnected with her. And another detail is that during her death, there were 2 pieces of imagery that really stuck out to me. One was a knife and one was a bathtub. And those are things that I actually think so fondly of because I love baths. That is a way that I nourish and care for myself. And my partner is a chef. And I remember the first time I noticed her and felt that like butterfly in my stomach was she was cutting her birthday cake. And I noticed the way that she cut the cake and the way her hand handled the knife. And I was like, damn, that's a chef hand. So thinking about how these 2 images that were so sacred and dear to me became violent. And then the last thing I'll say is that if you're a literary nerd, in the poem, the way it's formatted, on the left side are details about Christina. On the right side are details about my partner, and then the phrases come towards the center together and intermingle into the center to show that interconnectedness. And then at the end, it's shaped in an hourglass in the shape of a woman's body to connote just the urgency of loving Asian women and Asian femmes, and how this incident woke me up to that. So I'll read it, and if y'all need to take a pause, because I know that this can be a triggering topic, please feel free to take care of yourself. A knife became the instrument for her final breaths, taken from her own kitchen drawer, one of us taken. The way you cut into lemon pound cake was the first thing I noticed about you. Your hands in easy dexterity had me taken. A knife became the instrument. In his hands, a clumsy staccato, shrieking, more than 40 wails, wicked cacophony. In your hands, my favorite symphony, orchestral masterpiece, precisely performed, movements of careful creation, a slicing into flesh, into cake. Her vessel is locked into the tub, into meager headlines, into amygdala of every Asian woman. I read about her, and of course I think of you. Our New Year's Eve disco bubble bath on loop. How I caressed your flesh into the tub, into lavender womb. A woman with my roots, loving you means loving me whole too. Your vessel is sacred, exquisite home, bearer and birther. I am in reverence of what we carry. You rinse my hair clean, baptism for seeing how love needs to liberate. A knife became the instrument for loving us with urgency. Her flesh is mine. They tear us open, and we grow gardens in our veins. Thank you for receiving that poem. I wanted to offer it as a healing balm, especially in the physical location that is so close to where that happened and in the beautiful, resilient community in which it happened. So that is my intention, is to bring that moment full circle and offer it in this container. And I also feel like this container is so powerful. The people who are in this room, the love that's here tonight, and I know that together as a collective we can hold that grief and that healing, and yeah, really lean on each other and source from the power and community that's in this room. So this poem is called Meet You There, and this one's a one-pager. No, you're good. This one's a one-pager. Best supporting actress goes to Jezz Chung. So this poem is a practice of freedom dreaming, which is a concept originally put forth by Professor Robin Kelly. And it's the practice of thinking about what we're fighting for and not necessarily what we're fighting against, which is what a lot of activism asks us to do. But when we imagine a world where we are nourished and feeling cared for and feeling safe, we can realize that that world that we want to live in actually exists in these everyday moments and in our daydreams and in our visions for the future. So I wrote this poem the morning after I read about one of these violent incidents of anti-Asian violence. And I remember just being so exhausted and being like, I don't want to be here. And so where do I want to be instead? And what does that world look like? And this is the poem that came out. We rise to news coverage of the latest, greatest love story. Today, two Popoa fell in love late in life in a still there's Chinatown. Each love story is us in another dimension. The most frenzied part of our day is breakfast. We are making wet scrambled eggs and longanisa and tomatoes soaked in suka and garlic rice for a dozen of our soul friends. Everyone is here. Everyone is safe. There is freshly baked sourdough on the sun-drenched counter, real butter. Blueberry mint compote we simmered on the stove with 2 ripe berries found in the depths of our fridge. How easy it is for us to make sweetness from the forgotten. MacBooks and phones don't exist here, but the exalted azure ocean does. Her tide, a rolling reminder that Mama Earth will always hold our grief with an ancient strength. Friends are catnapping on the plush green grass. reading poetry to each other like the living room is a sold-out Carnegie Hall, snuggling with puppies strewn about the farmhouse because one of our dogs just had babies. New life is everywhere, laughter everywhere. Okay, this one's kind of funny. It's called I Actually Miss America, ? And I was nomadic for about a year and a half, close to when I first met my partner, because at the time she lived in Copenhagen. So I was kind of traveling around and really enjoying not being in America. Like, especially America compared to Copenhagen, where people have free healthcare and everyone's taken care of and credit cards don't exist. Like, when she told me that, I was like what? My brain short-circuited. Like, you just pay for things that you have the money for. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like, I'm so American that I can't even fathom that. So when I first was nomadic, I was like, oh, this is so nice. And then after a while, I found myself missing the comforts of home. Like, I drank my coffee with International Delight, which I'm kind of ashamed to say, but it's like my guilty pleasure. So I was missing that because creamer doesn't exist in Copenhagen or Denmark or Sweden for that matter. And then I really missed my Charmin toilet paper because in Europe, the toilet paper is like cardboard. So that's what this poem is about. And Jezz, I'm okay on this one too. Okay. Last night I got served an ad for barf-colored baked beans, and it made me miss America. Americans need campaigns for baked beans and toilet paper because we have a dizzying array of choices over what we purchase at the grocery store and what we wipe our asses with. Americans need a moment in the ketchup aisle to contemplate which condiment would be tastiest. Do Americans know that ketchup dates back to Imperial China, where it was made with fish guts and soybeans, shared along passage to Indonesia and the Philippines until the British took a liking to its salty umami, and a man in Philadelphia corrupted its base with tomatoes? Americans create choice over trivial things because we lack choice over freedom. We never asked for the selection on the shelves. We just need that one true thing. Americans create choice over trivial things because we must prove by producing. Decadence and poverty, Americans know no in-between. We eat capitalism for breakfast, colonialism with our fries, and the oppression is as ordinary as a trip to the store. And despite all of this chaos that distracts us from getting free, it's beyond me how I truthfully can't wait to wipe my ass with Charmin and chew over which chili sauce will make my mouth water most, leap down my country's aisles with a cart full of nonsense, like a mad woman, like a miracle. All right, I think I have 2 more poems for y'all. This poem, fun fact, got my book banned from China. So I mentioned the Dalai Lama in the poem, and the Dalai Lama is not recognized in China, so we sent this off to the printer, and they were like, you can't print this. And I was like, oh shit. So now the book is printed in Malaysia, and it's fine, but I feel like I have a badge of honor, like my art was censored in China. But this poem is about moving through a dramatic situation where I was getting this unwanted drama that I was trying to leave behind, and taking a moment of peace for myself, realizing that the anger and the fear that I was feeling actually wasn't mine, and I was taking it on from someone else or something else. And so this poem really helped me find peace. Jezz, I need your arm. Thank you. It's called The Best Human on Earth. Did you see how the internet tried to cancel the Dalai Lama? His boyish mischief untranslatable to the Western world, so they occupied his comment section with displaced anger, called his holiness something low, untouchable a synonym for scapegoat, untouchable a synonym for pedestal. And while I take no pleasure in someone else's misfortune, the cacophony brings me peace. I could abstain from all indulgence, vow to never sin. Hell, I could die for the cause, and the comment section would still be a war zone. When we call someone God, we forget there is God in each of us. When we call someone God, we play the film of our lives on someone else's screen. One spring evening, I soaked my tired shoulders in an onsen, breathed in hinoki wood and wet gravel, and found heaven amidst a storm. My body told me the fear and fury don't belong to me, and since then I've kept on living, smacking my lips as I'm fed the fruit of life in the garden of joy I've broken my back to grow. I bet you His Holiness is doing just the same. I bet you He's laughing too. All right, I have one last poem to read tonight. It's called I Am the Whole Sun. And it's kind of like the thesis of this book, or this place of wholeness that I get to at the end of my journey of self-discovery. So I'll read it for you. Of course, everything flocks to such a thing of beauty. Planets and space dust, meteors all the same. Nothing can resist the source of Genesis. Her light biblical, biological, brilliantly visible, even when the moon talks back, even when the funk ferments and the rot decays and the rats scurry, begging for a sliver of her rays.